Welcome into Postgame Live on channel BSR. I am Jake English, joined by Alan Smith of the Baltimoreans podcast. Alan, hello.
How y'all doing?
Doing great. It's a Baltimore win. The Orioles take 2 of 3 of this pivotal 3-game set, and we'll go win the 1-game set in August.
Does that count as a sweep for those keeping score at home?
Absolutely.
If we do win that game, we can count that as a sweep as well. Great.
I'm sorry. Did you just say if?
If and when we win that game.
Yeah. Because if is not how this works. All right. So the Orioles did win tonight, despite their best efforts in the late innings. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander through the box score. The Orioles only spread 6 hits through the game, 2 of whom came from Steve Pearce. You also had hits from Nelson Cruz, J.J. Hardy, and Caleb Joseph. From the pitching standpoint, Chen looked really good through 5 innings, and then that other inning happened.
It has a want to do for Mr. Chen.
We know a little bit about that. The Nationals, on the other hand, they spread 10 hits throughout the game, all sorts of hits, too many hits, and pitching despite giving up 4 runs, 3 of them earned, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Gio Gonzalez looked good. He looked every bit the great pitcher that we know that he is over there in the National League.
And Barrett didn't look so bad either when he came in. He was pretty lights out.
Yeah, so it was nice to squeak away with a win there. Why don't we do this? Let's take your highlight from the game.
My highlight for the game, it's becoming a pattern, but the bullpen just keeps stepping in and doing good work. And I would say that the entirety of the bullpen, from Hunter coming in and giving us an inning and a third, immediately getting Chen out of a pretty hairy spot when he came in, to O'Day working through his little hiccups and managing to not allow the tying run to cross, and then Britton being his lockdown self. I wish we weren't relying on more than 3 innings from a bullpen every single outing, but when they're out there, they're doing great work. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to piggyback on that. I think the moment for me that was the highlight was O'Day squirming out of that 8th inning. I mean, it was a really high pressure situation, and I mean, just as you indicated, the bullpen was lights out tonight. But that moment was really, it could have gotten away from us there, and it could have gotten away from us in a hurry. So that was really good to see him, especially after he hit the guy. It was Desmond that he hit.
Yeah.
To not see him unravel, but rather just to regain his composure and go out and get the birds out of the inning.
Get her done, despite a wild pitch, despite a hits batsman.
All right, so that's the good stuff. What do you have for tonight's low light?
Chris Davis. Man, look, I'm not going to do what everyone thinks I'm going to do and freak out about Chris Davis, but I want to know, when's he going to start hitting the damn ball again, Jake? This is getting. I mean, look, I am a huge Chris Davis fan. I am a huge Chris Davis defender. I believe that when he does start to hit the ball again, he's going to be okay. I don't think the talent has gone from his body, but it's getting to be a bummer. And watching him sort of swing over Gonzalez slider after Gonzalez slider didn't make it any easier.
I think the most frustrating thing to watch from Chris Davis is, again, I'm a huge Chris Davis fan. He's such an easy guy to root for. There is no Oriole I want to succeed more than Chris Davis, just for the type of guy he seems to be. But what's really frustrating to me is to watch him get beat by the shift so frequently. And I feel like he'll have good at-bats that in 2008, 2007 would have been singles and doubles, and instead they're 4-3 or 5-3 outs.
Yeah, so I mean, is that a situation where he just needs to start figuring out how to hit the ball to the? I mean, it shouldn't be that the shift defeats him so roundly. You gotta figure that out.
I mean, it would be nice if more balls were going the other way and not just skirting down the third base line, but hitting the other way. And it would be also would be nice if he were lofting the ball a little bit more, because I think that he's got the raw power that once they get up in the air, they'll end somewhere where the defense won't matter.
Yep, that's always good. How about you? What was your lowest point of a win?
My lowest point of the win, thank you, um, was the bottom of the sixth inning. The Nationals staged a bit of a comeback in the top of the sixth as Chen fell apart, and you could feel the momentum change. And in the bottom of the sixth, the Orioles offense did absolutely nothing and sent the bullpen right back out there. And it was one of those times in the game where maybe Orioles teams of the past have me programmed to think this way, but that was just the opportunity for the Nats to take the game. And
Yeah.
so going out of that top of the sixth and going to the bottom of the sixth and watching them just flail helplessly was kind of disappointing. Now, that didn't come back to hurt us, but certainly not something you'd like to see.
I think that's the first clause of that sentence is a clause that I think rings very true for this game. Didn't come back to hurt us, but, and it feels
Mhm.
like there were a lot of opportunities that the Orioles left some doors open for the Nats to walk through, and it's more that the Nats didn't walk through them than that the Orioles put a particularly good win together in this case. I'll take
Now,
it, take the W, but
yeah, I was going to say we're used to being negative because we do these post game shows after so many losses. But we should keep in mind that the Nats are a good team. This is not a bad team that blundered its way into a loss as the Orioles sat idly by doing their best to lose it. They did win this game, and they won this game because the bullpen locked them down after you got a pretty good start for 5 innings, and the offense did just enough against a really good pitcher. So I don't want to make it sound like all doom and gloom, but I think you're absolutely right. There were some real hairy moments, and maybe that just goes to show that it was a one-run game between two teams that are pretty good.
yep. And the other nice sort of overall highlight, first team in the AL East 50 wins. Not going to sneeze at that. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, when you're trying to beat the other AL East teams, absolutely, I will take that all day long. All right, well let's break it down as we do on these post game shows. Let's start with the offense. Give me some notes. What'd you see?
I mean, look, the fact that Manny Machado it took a 5-game suspension to really get this bat going again. That's fine.
Yeah,
Manny Machado loves to bat against the Washington Nationals, huh?
he does, and he's just locked in right now.
Yeah, it's great. It is really great, and I'm not. I don't want. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to move him anywhere in the lineup. But I think if he gets back into that number 2 hole, that's going to be the Orioles' offense finding that fifth gear that we've hoped they've had for a while. And if he's being able to be regular and getting on base in front of Cruz and Jones, and now all of a sudden Steve Pearce, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think you actually make a really good point because, we know that Chris Davis is in the middle of the order and he's not doing a whole lot, and you don't want to bruise a guy's ego unnecessarily, but imagine a lineup in which you slide Davis down to 7, you put Steve Pearce somewhere in the middle, and you put Manny Machado at 2. Suddenly, I mean, that turns into a murderer's row straight through, even 7, 8, because you get to guys like Davis, who's struggling but has the potential of danger. You have Jonathan Scope, who's really scuffling offensively, but he's got power. Guys that you can't take at bats off against when you're the opposing pitcher. So I wholeheartedly agree. It's good to see Manny wake back up.
Speaking of Jonathan Scope, how are you feeling about the Scope experiment these days?
Well, it's funny because that's been all over the Twitter in the last couple of days, and it really started in earnest when I think it was Matt Soroka that wrote an article on BSR talking about it. It's time for the Scope experiment to end, and that other alternatives like Jameel Weeks or
Who is hitting the
Lombardozzi,
ball right now?
yeah, should be up here and getting an opportunity. I'm not really sure that I buy into all that. Scope is young and he's learning on the job, and he's not costing us ball games. And I think if the latter were true, then I would say absolutely get rid of him, send him down, have him learn on the job down there. But he's playing good defense, which is a must for a Buck Showalter team, and he's also doing just enough to not only stay at the major league level but remain the starter. And I guess you could argue that just goes to show how terrible Ryan Flaherty is. But on the other hand, I think that having Jonathan Scope limp along as the second baseman is only going to serve the Orioles well for the next few years. So that's kind of where I stand on this. I know that my partner, Scott Magnus, probably disagrees vehemently, and he'll give me about 12 different statistics to tell me why this guy shouldn't be in the major leagues. But that's where I fall on that. What about you?
I think I agree. I think that as long as We are not, as long as Scope is not in any way, shape, or form being put in a position to carry the offense, and it doesn't look like he's going to be, then I'm fine with him being an everyday second baseman because he's got a cannon for an arm. He's figured out the double play with Hardy like a champ, and as long as he can come along and we can see what we've actually got in this kid for a full season, then that sounds awesome. I don't think anybody else that's in the minors. I'm a Lombardozzi fan. I'm not particularly a Weeks fan, but I have no sample size for either of them. My feeling is that neither of those guys is going to be anything other than a backup infielder as a career, and I feel like Scope has a higher ceiling. So just in terms of where the Orioles end up in a long-term thing, I want to see what we got with Jonathan, and I don't want him to feel like he's getting yo-yoed around or that he has a particularly short leash. Let him go.
The Orioles would never do that.
No. For some reason, we don't seem to do it with hitters. Buck likes his guys as long as they're. Yeah, I don't know what the whole Gausman thing is. We don't need to worry about that right now. What else did you see out of the offense that you liked?
Well, obviously Team Steve. Steve Pearce is just getting it done.
What did he do in a past or present life to deserve this?
I don't know, but I want to do that.
It's fantastic.
I want Steve Pearce to be my new dad.
He's amazing.
He's also one of those guys, and this, it goes back to, I guess, what a sap I've gotten to be in my old age, but it's just so nice to see a guy that has worked this hard, who was really humble and really accepting of his role as a backup, flourish and do so very well, and it's so clear that his teammates are thrilled for him, even the ones that are suffering with playing time because of it. And gosh, that's just one of the nice things about baseball, that you can watch and see a guy like Steve Pearce have a monster season like this and just feel good about.
I am already excited for when the season ends and we trade him to the Rangers for a bunch of prospects.
Or we could get Chris Davis and Tommy Hunter in return.
Yep, sounds great.
All right, we talked about that horrible 3-up, 3-down bottom of the six. You had a note here about the offense kind of shutting down after it created 4 runs, correct?
Yeah, and we created 4 runs. We kind of lucked into that 4th one. I'll take it, but that Ian Desmond attempt to double Adam off third, not a good choice, not a good decision at all. I am afraid that young Mr. Desmond is going to end up as the GOAT of this game because his error call allowed the 4th run, and then he managed to get himself hurt. But the bats, that they were pretty neutralized by that pitching staff. It's a good pitching staff, so it doesn't raise any serious alarm bells, but we didn't hit the ball all that well in these 3 games against the Washington Nationals, except for the 11th inning.
Yeah, and the one note offensively I had from the Nationals, they hit the ball hard. I mean, they were wearing out that center field wall, and luckily the ball wasn't carrying any better than it was, because this game could have been 7-4 the way that hitting was going. All right, well, you mentioned some defense, so let's shift into there. You talked about Ian Desmond's terrible defense. I think that was the 3rd inning. I saw some folks weigh in saying that Desmond may have had a play at first base instead of trying to go to third. Who am I to judge? But boy, that looked terrible. Yeah, and it looked like he was trying to do a little Derek Jeter stop throw and just doesn't have that particular club in his bag. Right. Wasn't the end of the interesting defense from the Nationals. There was a weird play later on in the game where the second baseman ranged to his left and almost hit Caleb Joseph as he ran to first. One of those plays where you kind of wish your defender would just kind of put the ball in his back pocket. But I always thought of the Nationals as having a pretty decent infield defense, Ryan Zimmerman's arm notwithstanding. But I thought they were a pretty defensively solid club, so it may have just been a night off for them.
You're right. They came in on like a 14-game errorless streak. So this was just a fortunate hiccup as far as I'm concerned. Jason Worth had some weird paths to the ball and right a couple of times. They weren't on their game, which is fine.
Yeah, right. We'll take it. The other thing that I noted defensively was in the 4th inning from the Orioles. Ball hit out the center, and Jones threw home, and I didn't love the throw. I didn't love the
Yeah.
throw because it allowed a second runner to move into scoring position. So if he had just hit the cutoff man, it would have been runners at first and third. But instead, it was runners at second and third. I believe there were 2 outs at this point. Luckily, it didn't come back to burn them, like we said earlier in the show. But the thing is that Jones had to make a good throw for that to not suck for us, and he didn't make it.
I feel as though that's sort of the Adam Jones story, right? He puts himself in higher degree of difficulty situations all the time, and most of the time he does it like a champ, and then every so often he does a bad, he doesn't hit the cutoff man, or he swings at that, first pitch and just pops it right up. He's just a high risk, high reward guy, that Adam Jones.
Yeah, and I'm not hating him. I'm just saying I wasn't
Yeah.
loving it. Wasn't loving it.
So what did you see out of our bullpen? We have to at some point talk about the Wei and Chen experience.
All right. Well, do you want me to start with Chen then?
Let's go. Let's dive into Chen.
I thought Chen looked really good for 5 innings. He got himself in a situations that he had to wiggle out of, but he did it. And he was also getting some calls that caused the famous Wei and Chen glare.
Yeah.
But I thought he looked really good. The velocity was good. The placement was good. I didn't see him missing his spots by huge margins. He just ran out of gas in the sixth. He wasn't in a high pitch count. He was just done. So it's very disappointing that he didn't go deeper. But I thought for 5.1 innings or whatever, he looked all right.
Now riddle me this: if Wei and Chen is the kind of pitcher that when he's keeping the ball down and when he's hitting his spots, he is a very very competent, some might even say good major league pitcher. Why do we not consider him for a bullpen role if he can be the guy who comes in and mops up 3 to 4 innings and is not expected to go into that sixth?
Well, I don't know. And part of it may be what we're paying him, if that's a consideration. But it seems to me like we've got a bunch of guys like that, including the guy that we paid $50 million for 4 years to come here and pitch. But you look at Miguel Gonzalez, you look at Wei and Chen, and Bud Norris, who's been our most dependable starter this year, really has that track record as being that fifth starter / long man in the pen type of guy. I think our entire staff is built of guys that are really no better than 3 starters, number 3 starters, and which one are you going to send to the pen because they all suck?
Yeah, it's true that they all suck, but I think that Chen seems to have a more dependable, very good for 3.5 to 4 innings stint, and I feel like if we could maximize that ability, because Ubaldo is more of like you may get 7 one-hit innings out of him, and you may get 15
Hindenburg.
Fourth. Who knows? Tillman is more like when he's on, he's on. But I feel like Chen is very dependably good for a little while, and then he always hits that wall. And I sort of think that maybe we should just acknowledge that that's who he is as a guy and stop trying to make him go out there for the sixth.
Well, I would love. I keep saying that as much as I like Miguel Gonzalez, that he needs to be the long guy, and that we need to bring Kevin Gausman back up to be a pitcher because he really hasn't done anything wrong to be sent back to the minors. And I think if you've got a guy like Chen who can make it through 5 innings and then is iffy, that's what you call a fifth starter. And for most of the teams in this league, their fifth starter is not, a guy that you're going to depend on to go 7+ every time out there. It's just that we have too many guys like that.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep him as the fifth starter, and then we'll just, stop sending him out for the fifth at all, and just let him pitch 5, and then Miguel Gonzalez can come out and do 4. That'd be great.
That's right. It'll be like the Astros a couple years ago.
So you also had a note here that you were impressed with Tommy Hunter.
Yeah, Tommy Hunter was looking good, and the thing about Tommy Hunter that I find so encouraging is that when he was struggling as the closer, it was really frustrating because he was blowing games, yes. But more importantly, it was really frustrating because I had that feeling that we were going to need a good Tommy Hunter to make it this season. And whether that was Tommy Hunter the closer or Tommy Hunter the back-end bullpen arm, Tommy Hunter has a lot of weapons, and one of them is incredible heat now that he's throwing in shorter stints, but he's also got that starter's repertoire where he can throw the breaking ball. He's got a changeup that isn't, a plus pitch, but it's a pitch he's got.
Right.
And Tommy Hunter came in and he gave us length, for him, and he gave us exactly what we needed, which was to stamp out the rally that was going on, and he did it by just muscling back and throwing hard.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Tommy Hunter has always been one of my favorite members of this bullpen. I have a soft spot in my heart for him, and I sort of
Have
like
you been seduced by Tommy Hunter?
oh, quite. I sort of I sort of am rooting for him to regain the closer's role at some point. I mean, I think that Britton is fantastic, but I'm glad that we have a 1B guy, and I think that that's what Tommy can be when he's healthy and is confident and is using all of his pitches. He's a 1B kind of a bullpen guy, and that's really valuable. And then we just gloss over the fact that Darren O'Day, I think, has the lowest ERA of anybody in the major leagues right now who's a reliever. Just
Yeah, I mean he's 1C, right?
sure, or 1D, given his name.
Right. No, Darren O'Day was good, like we talked about at the top. He could have unraveled. He had some difficulties there, but he managed to find that extra gear and rear back and get out of the eighth inning.
Yeah, it's fun. I like when we have all those guys that are there and ready to go.
The one thing I will say about the late innings of the game is I would like to have some games that don't make me pee myself. I mean, we get to that late inning. I keep calling it paceball because it's like, I'm going to wear a trench in my living room just watching these games. I don't know what it is about the cardiac kids, but I would just like to have a few laughers now and then. Like, is that so much to ask?
Like that 6-1 lead against the Red Sox at Fenway, which all of a sudden we had to make interesting.
Right.
God damn it.
Right. Well, it's the Fenway effect. When they started clawing back, you were up by 2, but you already felt like you were losing.
Right.
Wacky stuff happens in that building, whether or not they're in first or last.
Yep. All right. So, what do you think about the Washington pitching performance?
The Washington pitching performance, like we talked about, was really good. I mean, I know they gave up, 4 runs on paper might not look good, but Ian Desmond threw the game away for Gio Gonzalez, which is tough to watch. I'm no great lover of the Washington Nationals, but I would love to have a talent like Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah.
He was fun to watch, and that bullpen's got some dangerous arms back there too. It was a good show of guys I don't watch every night, regardless of how bad Masson would like me to, showing me why they're so good.
Yeah. How did they get him? What did they give up to get him?
I have no idea.
Let me just.
You gonna get on the Google machine there?
Yep.
Well, I will tell you the other good thing about this game is that Gonzalez in a losing effort went 6.2 innings, and Barrett came in to pitch the rest of the game. So, even in a loss, and we had this the other night with Mattis and Brock coming in, the Nationals didn't torch their pen by any stretch of the imagination to go ahead and keep this game close. So I guess it's not only good pitching that they get, but also excellent pitching utilization.
Yeah. Well, looking through it, it doesn't look like they gave up that. I mean, sort of a poo-poo platter. No, that's not true. They gave them catcher Derek Norris and Tommy Malone, who both turned out to be major leaguers. So could be worse.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do the final takeaway. What's your final takeaway from both this game here and the National Series itself?
This is the kind of good teams win these series, and I'm pleased and proud that the Orioles are the kind of team that's winning these series right now, and it's exciting that we're in first place, and we seem to be in a situation where the American League East is not as good as everyone thought it was going to be. And my bottom line takeaway here is that while I do think that the Orioles could have stepped on the Nats' throats a little bit more effectively, the moral is that good teams win these games, and this may be, in fact, a good team. How about you?
We're all hoping. I think the key takeaway for me from both this game and the series is that we have to continue the pace now that we're on top.
Right.
Now that we're in first place, we can't let the other teams in the East claw back up and put ourselves in a position where we're not in control. Particularly because after the All-Star break, we have a brutal schedule out west. But also, if we can just build a lead, you alluded to it before. This AL East is not special. This year it is simply not. And, with the Tanaka injury, the Yankees, barring some sort of move, are really going to have a difficult time playing catch-up. You've got the Rays, who, though they're playing better right now, have built themselves such a deficit that it's going to be difficult to see them make a move. And Toronto is falling apart the way a lot of people who weren't convinced by them before were, they're now saying, I told you so. So I really feel like with all this weak division nonsense going on, the Orioles might be built to go ahead and keep that up, and these are the games that you need to absolutely win in order to put yourself in that position.
It is that A's team, man. That is a scary looking team all of a sudden.
It is, and good thing they like us so much.
Yeah, really. I'm glad we're friends. All right. So what do we have to look forward to here?
Well, tomorrow they're going off to play the Yankees. It'll be Hiroki Kuroda versus Baldo Jimenez. You mentioned the poo-poo platter before. Baldo Jimenez is definitely that.
The new word on the street is that Miguel Gonzalez is going tomorrow and Ubaldo is going on Saturday.
Are you calling me a liar, Alan Smith?
I'm calling you less currently Googling.
All right, fine. Malinformed, I will take it. So it's gonna be Miguel Gonzalez versus Hiroki Kuroda. Not a matchup I love, but every once in a while, Miguelito will have a good start in New York.
And I this Yankees team, I am really impressed with what Joe Girardi has done so far. But eventually, this has got to come apart at the seams, man. They have lost everybody.
I would love this series to be the start of a big decline for them.
Amen. Let us put the final dagger in the Yankees' backs and let them go into the All-Star break on a 4-game losing streak.
All right, here's my last note for tonight. I'm going to ask you. This is a personal question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Tanaka is injured. He's got a UCL. We don't know the degree of the tear yet. He's going to do the platelet injection, and after that, if it doesn't work, he's going to go ahead and have Tommy John. Where are you on the Schadenfreude scale? Are you loving this because it's the Yankees, or do you feel bad because a guy with amazing talent who was on his way to a Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, yada, 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 has been felled by an injury?
Well, not to preview the Baltimoreans 100th episode.
Oh, never mind then. Moving on.
But I'll do a little bit of a tease and to say, and I actually think it's very similar to the Brazil-Germany game in levels of Schadenfreude, because I hated Brazil. I grew up hating Brazil, and I very much enjoyed watching them go down 4-0. But then the last 3 goals, I was just like, oh man, this is suddenly getting really unpleasant, and I no longer can really enjoy it in the same way. So I think that overall, I'm pleased as punch that this may be the thing that derails this Yankee season once and for all. But I do feel a little bit of sadness, and I would feel it more were it anybody but the Yankees who he was pitching for right now. How about you?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I really am delighted that the Yankees are going to be without a tool that they paid a ton of money for. I would love for that investment to be a problem for them. I would also like them to not be able to do anything at the break, for the trade deadline, and see them just kind of have to eat mistakes for once. For once, that would be nice to see. But on the other hand, I don't have anything against Tanaka personally. He came to the major leagues on this huge contract because he's a great pitcher, and even though we've handled our business against him, he's really asserted himself as one of the best pitchers in the league, and it's a shame.
He has pitched greatly.
All right, well, before we sign off, you mentioned this is something I'm really excited about. It's the Baltimoreans' 100th episode.
Woo-hoo!
Please tell us just a little bit about it.
Well, for the Baltimoreans' 100th episode, we are going through the top 100 reasons why it's fantastic to be an Orioles fan. And many of those came from people who, if you know to watch the Baltimore Sports Report post-game live show, you may have contributed some aspect to the countdown that we're doing. We also have a guest appearance from the #1 most reoccurring guest on the Baltimoreans, who is, of course, Dan Duquette, and a couple other little surprises for our 100th anniversary episode. So pretty excited about that. What are you guys going doing on Bird's Eye this week?
Well, I can tell you that I have no idea what's coming up for the Monday episode of Bird's Eye View that will come out on Tuesday morning, but I do want to go ahead and make a plug. Bird's Eye View in conjunction with both Baltimore Sports Report as well as OBP are putting together a softball event on August 2nd. It's going to be a softball game in the afternoon, and then we're going to go to the baseball game afterward, and you can buy tickets just for the softball game itself, which will include an OBP designed T-shirt, and
Nice.
you can also buy tickets to hang out with everybody at the game. It should be a really good time. There are details available at birdseyeviewbaltimore.com as well as on baltimoresportsreport.com. It's going to be a great time. We really encourage everybody to come out and take part in it.
What's the date?
It's August 2nd.
August 2nd. Excellent. Excellent. Everyone should get down and watch and play.
Alrighty. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to close postgame live on this victorious evening as the Orioles take on the Washington Nationals 4-3. And we will be back in some fashion with somebody talking behind the mics on Tuesday. For Alan Smith, this is Jake English. Good night. Adieu, adieu.